Welcome to a Calvinian architecture on this really restless, windy, late winter morning. I'm reading from the 7th octave, 3rd chapter, Cecilia, verse 2, story of a journey in verse 3, story of a house that I've lived in or wanted to live in or wanted to buy or dreamt about. Any one of those. Verse 2. Everything seemed to keep falling and breaking that autumn in 1980. We travelled all the way down from just south of Rome, through the Amalfi coast, where I sat on the black sand and threw black pebbles into the lime green October sea. Then inland to Potenza, the bleakest of cities, high on a dark hill overlooking a ravine, the landscape all round us steely grey, with a black silhouette of trees bared by early frost, jutting out of the clay and the browner soil. In Foggia we found a hotel open early in the morning and tried to sleep on sheets permeated with stale tobacco. Failing to even close my eyes, I went downstairs to the bar. Fellini's 8.5 was being screened on late night TV and the room was full of travelling salesmen, the blue TV screen barely visible through the clouds of thick blue cigarette smoke. The next morning we drove past Chieti and on to L'Aquila, under the snowy mass of the Gran Sasso towering above us, its peak glowing pink with the sun's first rays. At exactly that moment, my gums started bleeding, my head spinning. When we got to Urbino, I watched you below me walking up the stairs of the little pensione and saw the bottle of olive oil we'd just bought from a roadside stall slip from your grasp and fall ever so slowly onto the hard stone floor and turn into a glittering emerald green lake, its banks rapidly spreading upwards until your frozen feet were turned into twin islands in its centre. And in Via Lavatori at the Pensione Irene in Rome, 7 blood-red carnations dried overnight in the vase, filled to the brim with water and turned into faded pink by sunrise. The petals crumbed to dust as I touched them. As I turned to say something to you, something beseeching you to the rescue, I knocked the glass top off the low table. It shattered into a million pieces. Outside, the roar of the water tumbling through Trevi's marbles drowned out the mumbled message I was trying to send you. At the railway station in Florence, we tried to call Australia, and the coins we'd gathered and counted cascaded down onto the terrazzo floor, each rolling in its own particular direction, seeking its fortune in a stranger's pocket. Later on the train, as the conductor asked for the ticket, it slipped from my hand and, carried by a sudden gust, blew right through the open window. Somewhere between Pontedera and Empoli, at the airport in Rome, I watched that same breeze blow you through customs beyond my sight. And when I got back to the little apartment we'd been staying in, someone had rifled through the room and everything was turned upside down, spilled, broken down, falling, still falling. Verse 3. We moved into 570 Canning Street from 295 Amos Street in 1965, when Canning Street was still full of Italians, Greeks and Maltese, Everyone sat on the grass at night on chairs they dragged from their kitchens and backyards, laughing, talking in sing-song, lilting tones to each other and to others standing at front gates, up on the balconies or leaning out of passing cars. Soccer matches were being played on the centre strip constantly around the chairs and within the concrete curbs. Great skill was needed to contain the moves within such a restricted space. It wasn't just young hopefuls either, but a few state league players would be there, as keen as any of us to hear the sweet, soft thud of the ball being caressed and pushed lovingly between eager, waiting feet. Paul Jansen and I sent searing drops and torpedoes over Zephyrs, Holdens and Cortinas for hours one wet night. We stopped in the early morning, our palms blackened with ingrained dirt. In those days, the balls was like a language, or rather a voice, through which we all spoke to each other. I love that house at 570. It had a big camellia tree at the front, and you could see the dome of the exhibition building from the upstairs balcony. My mother used to come home for lunch each day, and everything seemed close by, really close by. Everything seemed simply close by. I didn't know it then, but it was the closest we ever got to being back home. Pros Papaleo, the owner, ran a tailor shop in Lygon Street. He offered us the house for no deposit and $20 a week. And we nearly bought it, but we didn't have a sense of owning property. The reasons for ownership somehow evaded us. It all seemed an unnecessary complication in life. Why buy when you can rent? I wonder what it would be like to live there again now. And when I occasionally drive past, but it's really very occasionally, even when I could or sometimes when I should drive down Canning, inevitably I avoid it. The street's always empty, no chairs on the grass, no games anywhere, no talk, no laughter. The camellia is still there, though much bigger, with a greener, denser foliage. Strangely enough, I have never on those occasions ever seen any of those bright, scarlet, velvet, petaled flowers bursting out from the bush, all aglow with that scarlet radiance. For example, at dusk or on an early spring morning. Never. Just brown, sturdy branches and hard, thick, green, shiny leaves. Much like these, really. Hard, thick, shiny, green leaves. And especially when it's so windy, they all fall and cover the paths. A strangely unsettled day. Until tomorrow. 7th octave, 4th chapter. The city is Marozia, verse 2 and 3. Until then, enjoy the wind.